Good morning.
Good morning. It's October 15th, 2023. And our title today is Knowing Peace in the Midst of War. So I know that all of you are aware that we had a big happening in Israel and Palestine. And so we'll be talking about knowing peace in the midst of war today. But let's start, first of all, with an opening prayer. So let's go within and know the truth. We know the truth that there is one life, one mind, of which each one of our lives and minds are integral. We are one. We cannot be separated. And that includes everyone on earth. So we know that right now there appears to be a schism. There appears to be an us against them, which is impossible since we are one. So as we focus on knowing the truth that God of love is operating in this world, allows us the freedom to do the opposite of love and loves us still. So we observe and we keep the faith, we keep the knowledge of peace as the truth of our being. And as we do so, we allow it to ripple through the entire earth. We give thanks for this knowing, for it keeps us centered and sane and at peace. And so it is.
Beautiful.
Thank you. So yes, so that's our big discussion today is, okay, so how do we do that? How do we know peace in the midst of war? Because it's very disconcerting to have every television channel and news channel all focused on this big kerfuffle in Israel, where way too many people have been killed. I think we're at about 2,400 people right now, and both Israel and Palestine, and it's going to get worse. And so we would really like to see peace, and we know the people there would really like to have peace. They would just like to have peace on their terms. So we must keep ourselves centered as we watch and experience what is going on. We may feel that we have sides, but we know that we're really all one family, and that's the human family. And all of that is part of the one creator, the one God. So we are all valuable, we are all lovable, we are all necessary, and we're all eternal. And so people can be knocked off the planet, but they're still here. They're still a part of this thing we call life. And so Bob was asking me today, well, how do we do that? How do we do that?
I just don't know. I want to leave. I had a dream in my dream, both the Israelis and the Hamas were firing rockets at each other. And as soon as the rockets went up into the air, they disappeared. And then they got out their guns and began shooting at each other, and the bullets just fell from the gun to the floor, to the ground.
I like that dream.
And then they decided that they had to fight another way, so they went out into the streets with clubs. And when they hit each other with the clubs just fell apart. And so, and in the dream, it finally got to the point where they were going to have to work it out in some way other than with violence.
Wouldn't that be something?
And I think, the problem, there's lots of problems. I can't say the problem, but one of the problems is that we take a position without necessarily noticing it. And then everything that we do is in relationship to that position. So you're wrong and I'm right. That's one position. Two, since you're wrong and I'm right, I'm going to win this. I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure that I win at whosever expense it has to be. And in that battle, there's no humanity. And so we lose our humanity. And in my dream, what happened is the people that were opposed to one another had to face each other face to face, hand to hand. They had to fight hand to hand until they got so tired they couldn't fight anymore. And I think we're going to have to get, well, I went away. We're going to have to fight in a different kind of way. We're going to have to fight with our own consciousness to come to a place where we can see a person that we call an enemy as a person. And that is for both sides. And I don't really care who started it, who started it this time. If you listen to the stories that each side tells, the other side started it. It doesn't make any difference who started it. The question is who's going to stop it and what are we going to do instead of it? So then we move into another part of that. And I think this is what's important in our relationship with all of us or with each other. And that is, how can we bring peace to every relationship? How can we bring peace to every conversation? If we can't bring peace to a conversation where there isn't any war, how can we bring peace to a conversation where there is war?
Right.
So we live a lot of our lives on the edge of combat. We don't necessarily say that, but if you crowd me on the road, I'll crowd you back. If you do something to me to hurt me, I will hurt you back, or I will make sure that you know I could. And so the posturing that we do is a defensive kind of posturing that says power, might is right. And the thing that is in the background is that the conversation that we need to have, how can we work this out? How can we make this work for the both of us? And I think what's happening now is that both sides have said there's only one way this is going to work. And the truth is, that's not the truth. There's going to have to be another way this is going to have to work. I don't know how this is going to play out. But in the end, if we look at this 5 years from now, it won't have been that one side won. There will have been some changes in how we view things and how people work together. There'll be more than that. So it's not about the fight, it's about the peace. How do we create the peace?
And what can we do? I'm glad I'm not in a position of leadership where I have to decide who does what and who, we are allies with Israel. So who has to go and participate? I'm glad I'm not in that position. I like my position of being a minister of this metaphysical truth, that there's only one truth, and that's what's eternal. And so we know we have a God of peace, a God of love. We know we're one with it. So my job is to remember and know that peace is, love is, wholeness is. And it's called, when we have a meeting where there might be some contention in our board meetings and whatnot, we always had a practitioner who would hold the high watch. And I understand Michael Bernard Beckwith has his practitioners hold the high watch for his Sunday services. And that means stay in an almost meditative state of knowing the truth, that we are one with God, we are one with good, that love is and peace is. And so even as a matter of fact, if things start getting contentious, that practitioner stops everybody and said, let's take a moment. She or he does treatment, an affirmative prayer to know the truth, which is peace. And so that's what we have to do. And it keeps us sane. It keeps us from being in conflict all the time and being worried and concerned. So, I mean, if you have someone in the military that might be involved, you're going to be concerned. But except for that, I think we do more for the world by keeping the high watch, by knowing, yes, there's a kerfuffle going on right now, but let's see it resolved soon and see people well and happy and getting along again. And you know what? That makes you feel better, and it's better for your health. as you feel peace, love, truth, it's better for you. And we do need to be concerned about that, because people can let themselves be really frightened and scared. Well, that's the same thing, isn't it? Frightened and worried, and it's bad for their health, bad for everything. Unfortunately for Jewish people, and it makes me sad that this is true, every time something like this happens again, it's a rewounding. It's a rewounding. Oh, here we go again, some group of people wants us dead, and that's an awful thing for them to have to experience, just because of their identity, and their religion. So we know that they're all part of the one. They are our brothers and sisters as well, and we know as we do this, we do our part to know peace in the midst of war.
So my question to myself is, how can I bring kindness to every situation? How can I bring kindness to every conversation? How can I bring kindness to everything that I'm doing? And I just recently had a knee replacement. Some of you already know that. I probably talked about it more than enough. And it's not a pleasant experience. And so when my knee is busy telling me how upset it is that it got cut off and replaced with a new one, and that I'm supposed to be okay with that because I was asleep while it happened, and my knee is objecting, what I have to do is not have a battle with my knee. What I have to do in the face of pain is to meet it with kindness, to meet it with love. If I can't meet the knee that I have with kindness, then why am I surprised that the pain is even greater than it necessarily would have to be? And so I can't change the fact that now that the surgery is over, my body has to react to the condition that it's in. But I can change how I deal with it. And I did notice, and I have noticed that as I'm kinder to myself and as I'm more agreeable to being patient with whatever the process is that's required, I have less pain. And to some extent, the pain that I feel and the pain we feel is the reaction to having been hurt. And that reaction is a reasonable reaction. It doesn't justify going after somebody or hurting somebody, but it is a reasonable reaction.
Indeed.
You were going to say?
I was just looking at my notes to see
Oh.
what I might want to say next, but I think I already said it.
So that wraps up what we.
This says what we can do. What can we do in this besides holding the space for peace to be realized? With that, we already talked about. Well, some people, including our organization, are having peace vigils and prayer calls. There is actually, our home office has 2 prayer calls going now. Well, one is in Geneva, and it's centered on the Ukrainian Centers for Spiritual Living and Ukraine's well-being. So there's that one, and there's another one that I'm trying to remember exactly. But so the home office, and if you go to the website, csl.org, I'm sure those are shown, but you can actually participate with people on Zoom with these calls. So, and of course, many of the centers are having gatherings and meditations where they're focusing on peace.
So part of that is not to change what's happening somewhere else, but to be the energy that's required for healing to take place, to be the light, to be the love, to be the kindness, and that energy doesn't have boundaries. That energy doesn't have physical limitations. So when we are the kindness, when we are the love, when we are the expression of good, that then permeates everything in the universe. So we're not alone. So part of the process of prayer is the recognition of the power that you have as a being of light to change things. And if we look at, a lot of the research that's been done on the molecular level and how cells or how atoms work and how I disappear. Yeah, like that. What's interesting is, and I can't do justice to it. You may be able to do it better than I can, where you see an atom here, but you don't see it over there, but it appears in 2 places at the same time. And
it tends to appear where the observer expects it to be.
Just trying to remember how that works.
That's called the observer effect.
Right. So, but what that says is we are in a universal relationship with whatever we're doing. It isn't just me. It isn't just you.
Yeah.
So when we think about a prayer vigil, what's that going to do? A prayer vigil is an energy, a field of energy that's necessary, that's needed. And that field of energy can have a huge impact on everything around it.
Yeah, some people think prayer is nothing but a lovely bunch of words, but there was a book, and I don't remember the name, but I remember the author was Betty Eady, and she, E-A-D-Y, and she had a near-death experience. And when she had her near-death experience and was ascending, she found herself looking down at the earth. And from the earth, there were all these lights, very bright lights, shining forth. And she had a guide with her, and she asked, "What are all those lights coming from earth?" And she was told that those were prayers that people were doing right then, and that the brightest lights were always a mother's prayer for her child. So I love that story because it's physical proof in her experience that prayers are a something. They are a real deal. They are an energy. And so it's not just a lovely bunch of words to make you feel better, but they really are their energy, their atoms moving. And so that's why we believe that with our positive affirmative prayers, that we actually help that make come true energetically with physics, as you were saying. So it's very, very important, and important for you to know it and believe it. That just as we were talking earlier this morning, I asked Bob about, or maybe you just used it as an example, what you were doing with your mind when you were bicycling and trying to get over a tall hill.
Yeah.
And so what were you thinking about when you're trying to get up that high hill?
What was I thinking that I decided to ride this damn bike anyway? No. Well, what I would do on long distance rides is I would see the top of the hill and I would say, aha, I'm going to ride at the top of the hill. And then I would start pedaling. Well, as I started pedaling up the hill, the pedaling became harder and harder and more difficult. So then I said, I'm still going to get to the top of the hill, but I have to first get to the next telegraph pole. So then I would be pedaling to the next telegraph pole. I never lost sight of where
you would be seeing in your mind's eye that next
I can make it to the next telegraph pole. And then when I got to the next telegraph pole, I thought, okay, I'm going to have to walk the bike, but I can walk it to the next telegraph pole. And so I saw myself walking the bike successfully until I got to the top. I never lost sight of where I was going. The question is, what would I have done had I seen the top of the hill, had difficulty, and not had a conversation about how to get to the top? And what happened when I would be on these group rides is 3 or 4 other people that were riding with me would say, I've got to call home. I can't do this. It's too hard. And so one of the options is to quit. I would quit usually on a hill 3 or 4 times. And that meant I would stop. I mean, I quit. I can't do this anymore, but I wouldn't go back. And I would say, I guess I can do it again. I would get back and try again and try again and try again. So, but what we're talking about is the energy of the willingness to have things work for you is far more powerful than you realize.
Yes, what I'm talking about is the power of visualization, because what we visualize and focus on manifests. And so if when we keep the high watch and visualize and know peace on earth everywhere, we help create that. And as I said before, it's far better than worrying about it.
Well, that piece is important too, because
then you're seeing the worst case scenario.
If you're not doing something positive, the odds are pretty good that you're not doing nothing. And so it's easy when I watch the news to get wrapped up in taking sides and wanting to battle and getting scared. I either have to replace that with a more positive perspective, or without realizing it, I will spiral down into the lowest fear that's possible. And then what I'll say is things, well, I don't want to watch the news anymore. Now that I've got my fear all settled and I'm okay with it, I'm going to live with that. I'll turn the TV off. We need to be an energy for good, realizing that energy for good is something that is tangible and real, but also we need that because that is a better place to be than, oh my God, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse.
Right. And I know many people have lost loved ones, don't know if their loved ones are still alive. And of course, they're going to feel the sadness and the loss there. And that's appropriate to feel our feelings. I'm not saying let's just ignore our feelings and go about la la happy land, but to know that we are doing something, a thing, when we visualize what we want created on earth. We're helping to create it. So that's important to know. You are a manifester as you do this. You're not just being Pollyanna and acting like the truth is not so. It's a very powerful thing that we do when we know the truth. So I would like to close with a prayer now. I don't know who wrote this prayer, but it is definitely in alignment with our teaching. So if you would join me in knowing that there is a power for good in the universe, and it is moving in and through me this day to bring peace, harmony, and good to all. The divine is everywhere present, especially and including in all spaces of war, conflict, and violence. We bless all who are impacted by conflict of any kind. We know peace in the midst of war. We pray for healing and comfort where it is needed right now. In gratitude, we declare this truth collectively. And so it is.
And so it is. You know, years ago, I'm not quite done yet.
Oh, sorry.
Years ago, we did a fire walk,
We sure did.
and
A number of times.
yeah, and didn't get burned. Walked fast, but didn't get burned. And but one of the things that you don't do when you're on the fire walk is say, "Oh my God, this is fire! Oh my God, this is fire! Oh my God, I'm going to get burned! I'm going to get burned! I'm going to get burned!" No, what you say is, "I can do this. This, my feet are light. It's fine. I'd love it. God is in me, with me, walking with my feet." And what happens is what you say to yourself does two things. It changes the chemistry of your body, but it also allows you to have the courage to do the thing that's best for you, that's right for you. So part of being positive, if you can, in any situation, and bringing kindness to the situation, is creating a space for something more than would possibly be if that weren't there. In essence, kindness is fertilizer. And when you fertilize the soil of your soul with kindness, then what will flower will change everything and provide nourishment for those that need nourishment. And so it is.
Indeed.
So we're going to go to share screen.
So we'd like to invite you. Sorry, we had two fingers trying to move that. Just turn it off. So at this point, we'd like to invite you to support this ministry and our weekly recordings of talks. And you do that by going to our website, which is CSL, which stands for Center for Spiritual Living, palmbeaches.org. And click on a button at the top that we don't have showing here, which says ways to donate. And we're inviting those who watch our videos too, and don't come personally on Sunday, but watch it later. We appreciate your support. It keeps us funded and going. So thank you very much for that. So let's say together this affirmation of enrichment. My investment today is made with the full realization that God is the source of my supply and returns it to me enriched and multiplied. And so it is.
And we're going to end the recording here.
Right there, you can do it right there.